Hello, everyone. It's time for me to get back to Forrest Fenn and get away from DB Cooper and Amelia Earhart. Because, like I said, I'm not really into DB Cooper. Amelia Earhart, on the other hand, I kind of am into, but not so much. I'm trying to look for other mysteries and stuff to move away from the chase. Because, like everybody knows, the chase is over. I still have my solve, of course. Anyway, let me give you a quick update as to my solve and the anonymous person that emailed me. Again, I don't know who this person is. It could be anybody. But they were the ones that told me about the destruction of what they thought was a blaze. And I just wanted to give you that information of what they told me. The location of the blaze that was destroyed, they gave me a point right here, which is near the Five Springs Upper Camp. They were right here. They were telling me that in late 2017, there used to be something here, and it was destroyed in 2018. Now, I want you to keep in mind that I'm not using this for my solve. I don't believe that this was the solve. But anyway, over here, there was something very similar to this. It didn't look like this at all. It was kind of like a wall, and it had a big rock above it or something like that. And there was a hole that you would look through the rock, like this man is looking through this rock. This is actually from over here. That is from somewhere over here. That rock with that hole that I have the picture of, and that looks back. The solstice sunrise actually goes through the hole on that rock. So that's not the picture that the person sent me. They didn't send me a picture of this place at all over here. They just described it to me that it was a hole in the rock, and if you look through the hole, you could see the wheel. It wasn't a lineup with any of the spokes or anything like that. It's just that when you look from here, you would see the wheel. So they wanted to make that clear. So if anybody thinks the solve may have been over here, maybe that'll help you. I don't know. I don't believe it was here, but I wanted to share that information. But keep in mind what could have happened. And I tried to explain this to the person that emailed me. They pretty much found the wheel stuff that Sam and I were talking about, and they came up with a solve in this area. And what they might have done was ended up over here. They were not able to find the chest, obviously, because Jack is the one that found it. So what they did is they destroyed that structure that was here, thinking that it would stop anybody in the future from solving the poem. Now, I don't know who would have destructed it, but maybe that's what Jack was talking about. I don't know. I also don't believe that Jack solved the poem. He used brute force to solve the ending. He knows the beginning because he got that information from us, in my opinion. So I don't think Jack destroyed it, but Jack may have seen that in the past, and that's what he was talking about. I don't know. Like I said, that's not my blaze rating, but that's where the guy said the object was destructed that emailed me. Now, the picture that he did send me that I showed you guys was taken from directly. Here's the Porcupine Falls. They took that picture from over here. Now, apparently, there's a similar structure over here. And if you look from there, again, you could see the wheel because you're directly in line south of it. Like I said, I don't believe it was here because Sam Smith, I know, spent like a good week here with his wife walking around. I also know two other people that made multiple trips here, and then they also went to Bucking Mule Falls and they did a lot of research there. I also know people that went to Melody Falls. So the only real other falls that we have here is, of course, Five Springs. What I like about Five Springs is everything shares a common name. And I'm not going to get into my solve anymore, but I just wanted to tell you that. And I also wanted to point out again that this road, this intersection down here is where you would turn to go up to the campground. This road is the old way to get to the wheel. They replaced it with this new highway here. But back in up until the 1960s, this was the only way that you can go. So if Forrest went to the wheel, he had to have went this way if he went there as a kid. Now, this place that they're talking about, right here, this intersection, and you'll notice that, like I said, the solstice sunset comes from the wheel and it comes down and it goes to Rainbow Canyon. It crosses over the area where I think the chest was. Now, a lot of people have said to me, well, that can't be right. You mean you got to be there on a very specific day with the sun? No, you don't have to be there because the cairns at the wheel are on site, described on a map by Dr. John Eady. And they show you right here on site what each one of these cairns means. Or A, B, C, D. D is under the red line. And E, okay? The end, the END. So that's where that came from. And again, this is Aldebaran, Rigel, Sirius, Fomalhaut. And this is the solstice sunset. If you were standing here during the sunrise on the solstice, it would appear the sun would be over in this direction. Okay. But that's marked by a cairn. And I moved this so that you could see that. Here's the edge of the cairn. That's marked on site and labeled and on the map. So you don't have to be here. You don't actually have to figure out the astronomy or the angles or anything like that. They're all there from the wheel if you use the phone. I just wanted to show you again that the crossroads down here are being discussed here. They're being discussed in this image. Okay. Five Springs, Crossroads of Culture. You can read that. This is on site at the bench by the wheel. Here's the bench by the wheel. That's right near this sign, right next to it. So from this point of view where the sign is, if you stand at that overlook, you could see the crossroads that I was just telling you about, right down to Rainbow Canyon. Okay. And then if you sat there, you could sit on this bench. This bench has Charles Brady, Francis Brown, and Hammond Wise, Wise. These are the three Indians that are elders. One of them's a medicine man, too. They're elders in two different tribes. One of them's the Shoshone, and the other two are in Arapaho tribes. These three elders are the fathers or the leaders for the 81 Plains Indian tribes that put forth the effort to preserve the wheel so that the lumberjacks could not destroy it. They wanted to maintain this historical site for another set of thousands of years and not have the lumberjacks destroy it and not have the Forest Service make it a tourist attraction. They also wanted more signs put here, like this, that describe the sacredness of these grounds and why the Indians want this. And if you look at my Francis Brown video, you'll see clearly that Francis Brown had no problem with people coming here. He just wanted people to be educated. Like I said, he's the main guy on here. And they represented the 81 tribes. And Francis Brown said, look, we lost Devil's Tower as a sacred place. We're not going to lose the wheel. This is our last stand. He actually used the words last stand, which is interesting because this bench is directly south of where the Battle of Little Bighorn took place, where Custer was killed. It's also directly south of where the Joseph Henry Sharp cabin was that Forrest Fenn bought and had moved to Cody, Wyoming. So these are the three Indians, and they're talking about the different tribes and cultures that met at that crossroads right here. And this was the only way to get to the wheel. So they would come up at this crossroads and they would follow it all the way around here, up here, down here, and then it swung around the mountain and then it went this way. Eventually, in 1965, you no longer had to use this road, and they continued a new highway this way. So that's the way you go to the wheel now. This road here that you see is only a bike and a hiking trail. You cannot bring motorized vehicles beyond this point here and beyond, I think it's this point somewhere over here. You can't bring cars in there. It's only hike only. So this road is 14A. all the way down to here, and then it continues to level. That's alternate 14. This road, like I said, it originally was 14A. Then it was Salt Road before that. Okay. And then before that, it was an ancient trail that led to the wheel. Nowadays, it's just called Five Springs Camp Road because that's the only reason why it's used. It stops right here. It's no longer paved. When he was taking you from the bench, you were wise. When you left the area of the wheel, and he's telling you to take it down the mountain, okay, because he's trying to bring you back up into the canyon because from the wheel, the location where the chest is not far, but it's too far to walk. This cliff here is like 1,000 feet sheer drop. So there's no way you're going to go that way. This area in here is Five Springs Basin, plural, Five Springs. And the Five Springs form Five Springs Creek, which goes into Five Springs Canyon. The very first canyon that the sun hits is Five Springs Canyon. And then it goes over Five Springs Falls, Five Springs Campsite, and down the Five Springs Road intersection and into Rainbow Canyon. So now that that's done, and I updated you with that mail, let me show you what else I wanted to talk about. And this is for you guys that are searching in Yellowstone. I just want to remind you of something, and I've discussed this so many times before. This green area from here to here is 109 longitude. That's the range in width of 109. So this is like 109 degrees, 0 minutes, 0 seconds. And then this is 109 minutes. I mean, 109 degrees, 59 minutes, 59 seconds right here. If you notice, you see Cook City here, you see Hemingway here, you see Cody here, Kerwin here, Du Bois here, and then it goes over to Wind River Reservation, Wasaki's Grave, all of that stuff, and Sacagawea, all of that stuff is over here. Okay, so all of that is within the 109. So all those hints, to me, were to get you within this range. Now, you already also know, because I've told you many, many, many times that, and let me turn off these two lines for a second. Okay, so now that those two lines are off, it's a little bit easier for me to explain to you here. If you look at this red line, the coordinates for that longitude line run exactly through the center of the town, the original town of Kerwin, which is right here. It runs right through there. Now, if you go to Vietnam, that same line, except we're in Vietnam now. So it's going to be 109 east. This is 109 west. That same line at the same exact degrees, minutes, and seconds runs right through a place called Tua Ha, which is where Forrest Fenn was based in Vietnam. When Forrest Fenn was based in Vietnam, all the flights he had there were westerly. And when he describes his waterfalls and everything, it was all under his left wing. So everything he was describing was kind of in this area. Where he was bombing would have been much farther north. But, this is about halfway where he would have been. So he would have been way up here in North Vietnam where he was bombing along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. I located his waterfalls in Vietnam. And I've already done a video about that. You can go ahead and look through that. I'm not going to explain that stuff again, and I'm not going to give you the precise location of it. But I found it, and Forrest Fenn congratulated me on that research. But no, I didn't find the chest. This had nothing to do with the poem. But congratulations on the research that I did because I found the graves that he tripped over. That location was right along this blue line in Vietnam, of course. He flew at the same degrees that this blue line was to where he found the grave would be right at the tip of this line. All right. So the distance along that line and the time that they flew along that bearing in the helicopter from when they landed and he tripped over the grave. I took that same flight over to where he would be based if we were on the 109 that runs through Wyoming, and that put me in Kerwin. If I take that same flight, notice really interesting that it crosses over a lot of places where you guys have in your sobs. All right. We got Fishing Bridge over here. We got Canyon Villages over here. This spot right here is where Bill Gorman took the picture of Skippy standing by a rock at the falls in Yellowstone. It also crosses directly over Grebe Lake, which is Coach Chauncey. And then it heads up to Obsidian Creek and Gardner River. And of course, if you keep following it, it takes you into the area that he would have went with Donnie up around here. So a lot of the hints that he was giving, of course, was all up in this area. Here's West Yellowstone. Now, one of the things you guys already know, one of the reasons why I'm not looking in Yellowstone is he said that the hints in The Thrill of the Chase were subtle. And Yellowstone is all but subtle. So what I did personally, and I don't care what you do, I ruled out any place that he named. If anything, that was just to get you into the state of Wyoming, in my opinion. So the stories that he told you, he was describing them from this location, but he was really referring to a different spot. And I've discussed this many times. And whether you believe my solve or not is that's up to you. But what I'm saying is I went through and I showed you precisely how the poem takes me to that location. And I did that using just the poem and a map, the map of Five Springs. I didn't use any hints in any book from anywhere. I'm able to get the poem to work. And I have yet to see anyone do the same thing in this area. If he named the place, it's not subtle. So if it's at Fishing Bridge, that's certainly not a subtle hint out an aberration on the edge. But what I'm trying to tell you is even what he did is he related the solve in his stories, but everything is mirrored. And it's mirrored based on the Maya War for Me story. Because this place in Kerwin ties him back to Vietnam. This is 109, the same 109 that goes through his base in Vietnam. So if we take that trip right here, and you'll notice we're going to mirror it across the 109. This is 90 degrees. So I got 45 and 45. So this line here is roughly, let's say, 45 degrees out from Kerwin. The distance that I flew is the exact same distance that I flew here. Okay. But look where it ends. You guys can think what you want, but why would the poem come up with a message saying try the wheel? And a lot of people have referenced, mirror and mirroring. The other thing that I want to show you about this is everybody talks about a one-room school. And I never shown this to anybody before, but here you go. This is the one-room schoolhouse. It's a historical site. It's right here. And this historical site is 50 miles out of his way. It's 50 miles from Cody. Not only is it 50 miles away, it's exactly 180 degrees east of Cody. If I go directly north from that schoolhouse, guess where it goes? I'm not even going to show you, but it goes right over the wheel. If I follow it straight down south, I'm somewhere between the town of Shoshone and Casper, Wyoming. If I follow the hole in the wall, which has the Butch Cassidy connection, straight down, I'm somewhere between Shoshone and Casper. If I follow Hell's Half Acre, I'm somewhere between Shoshone and Casper. Up here, we have Hemingway. This is where Hemingway was staying at Red Lodge when he wrote For Whom the Bell Tolls. But in 1928, the very first time Hemingway came to Wyoming, he stayed right here in the Bighorn Mountains at the Spiro Wigwam Ranch in 1928. And that's where he wrote A Farewell to Arms. Now, if you notice, Forrest Fenn was discussing For Whom the Bell Tolls, which was made here, but he gives you the plot from A Farewell to Arms, which was made here. So all of the hints that he has are not all of them. You guys know how many hints are to Cody, how many hints are to Thermopolis and Wedding in the Waters. Somewhere between Shoshone and Casper, Hell's Half Acre, Lander, Riverton, Du Bois. Well, almost, Lander, Du Bois, Kerwin, all of that stuff is on the 109. Cody is on the 109. So we're mirroring, we're replicating everything that we did across. These are the trips he took in Vietnam. These would be the same trips, but we're mirroring them across the 109. That's how My War for Me, which he told everybody, if you do anything, read My War for Me. Well, that's how I believe that it's tied. Now, just to give credit where credit's due, the person that posts says, "Oh," is the one who discovered that 109 East and 109 West come right over Kerwin and Toy Hall in Vietnam. And he did that simply by taking the coordinates here, this coordinate, and simply changing the W to an E. And when you do that, that same longitude line is the run that comes from Toy Hall. But the problem is where he made mistakes is right here. We're up around the 45th latitude, where Vietnam, where his base was, is down by latitude of 12. So there's roughly a difference of 32 degrees latitude. And if you look at the latitude lines down by Forrest Fenn, the latitude lines, the times, right, of hours, degrees, minutes, and seconds, is going to cover a larger ground area than it would up at the 45th. That's why I used angles and bearings and I measured time, because the longitude here, the amount of distance covered by 1 degree of longitude here is way different than down in Vietnam. So you have to use, bearings, and you have to use distances. That's how this was done. O didn't mirror the Kerwin coordinate. He simply swapped east and west. Kerwin and Forest Base in Vietnam are not 180 degrees apart around the world. It's less than 180 degrees. We're going from 109 here up to 180, but then we start counting down and then we get back down to 109 again. So it's not 180 degrees. But once we establish the same longitude, we're mirroring across that longitude line. And what you do is you simply calculate the reverse bearing. So if this is 315 degrees northwest, then we're going roughly 45 degrees northeast for the same amount of time. So that's what I mean by mirroring. And I just, if my solve is wrong, maybe this will help you guys that are in Yellowstone or vice versa. But I just wanted to bring that up. I'm not going to discuss this again because it's been like 3 times now. And even if you ignore my solve, you have to understand this 109. It's very important. That's why all of his hints are centered around here. And that's also why all of his hints are centered basically around this line here. You'll notice that in here, the most places he discusses are really not below Old Faithful, which is right around here. So he's basically giving you hints in this quadrant. So basically, the places he's referencing here all have a corresponding reference over here. You see what I'm saying? So there is a lot of logic to this. So ultimately, what I'm saying is I'm open to hear any solution over here or over here. But the thing is, everything over here is named in the book. It's not subtle. Whereas everything over here is not named in the Thrill of the Chase at all. But he doesn't mention anything, okay, in there, except for in the poem where he mentions to try the wheel. But, and a lot of people are into the waterfalls besides me. And like I said, you could use brute force, which is what I believe Jack did. He ruled this out, he ruled out Melody Falls. He ended up here. He might have got distracted over here at that destroyed blaze that he thought was a blaze, wasn't really the blaze, because the darn blaze is the sun. And then when you get down in here where our spot was, this is campsite number 9 under the trees. Okay. Right off of that campsite, right down from where that blaze is on the ground that I showed you, is where our spot is. You'd have to ford the creek. Okay. But as you notice, the sun crosses over up here. Okay. And then it takes you right down to the location that you have to put in. So I just wanted to show you guys that again. Just keep that in mind. And like I said, if you really want to discuss your solve over here, so far nobody, and that includes K-Pro, Mike, Cynthia, Ben, everybody that has discussed the solve in here has never ever went through the poem in the same amount of detail that I did here and proven to us how Forrest Fenn would get you to their location with just the poem. If your solve can't do that, then it can't be correct. Because although he said it's going to be hard, you can solve it without the book. So, without any references to knowing that Forrest Fenn enjoyed fly fishing and brown trout, and going to Yellowstone as a kid, without any of that backstory, how would the poem get you precisely to your spot? And I don't mean with bias. In other words, don't look at the poem and say, well, warm water halts here because the water is warm, on this Firehole River because that's geyser fed. Well, that's your own bias. Where does the poem tell you to go to a geyser fed river? And if you want to discuss Forrest Fenn's hints, Forrest Fenn once said, and this is another important point, there are many places where warm waters halt, and most of them are north of Santa Fe, New Mexico. What that means is at least one place south of New Mexico has to exist that would qualify as where warm waters halt. And I challenge anybody to come and show me any place in New Mexico that has 2 rivers that are coming from active geyser basins, okay? And they create the headwaters of a river. Are there places in New Mexico that have headwaters of rivers? Sure, there are. Are there any of them any active geysers in there? No, there's none. Are there any active geysers in Colorado? Nope, none. So anyway, when you're coming up with your warm water salts, you have to find a similar place in New Mexico. My warm water salt, okay, not only is it plural because it's based on 5 springs, but the warm water salt is actually the decairn, which is based on the Falmouth Star. If you follow that, it takes you to a basin. A basin is where waters would halt. This is made by more than one spring. Are there places in New Mexico that have hot springs that form, in a basin that form creeks? Of course there are. There's springs all over the place over there in Arizona, in all of the states. Okay, I could replicate this. I could find not 5 springs, but that doesn't matter. It's just got to be more than one spring at that location that creates a creek south of New Mexico, Santa Fe, New Mexico. That exists, and it exists in Wyoming, but there are no geysers down there. So, in my opinion, that's yet another reason to rule out anywhere warm water salts that's associated with a geyser-fed river. It doesn't work. I think, and don't get me wrong, I'm not chastising people that are searching in Yellowstone, but I'm saying, look, guys, the chase is over. If you want to put your solve out there, let's be real and show us. Throw everything away, everything, just the poem. I want to see you take the poem and show me where the poem makes it to your location. Just the poem. Okay? You could use the map, of course, but show me how the poem gets you there without any bias. The minute you turn around and say, well, this must be where warm water salt, because it's got a hot spring, or it's got this there. Well, show me how did you come to that conclusion? The way I came to that conclusion is because when he told me to try the wheel in the poem and the wheel in combination sent me on a radial in a precise direction that pointed me there. Not only did it point me there into the basin, but it points me along the sun into the canyon, over the creek, over the falls, and right down there. So everything has a connection that comes from a bearing at that wheel. And you don't need to be a rocket scientist, because there's maps at the wheel that already have the lines on them. So you don't even need to be there a certain time of day or night or anything. This is historical information that'll never change, regardless of the surroundings. I hate to keep pushing that point. And I want to say for Eric Johnson, and it is what it is. I enjoyed his 4-part video, and I agree with him. Let's stop the nonsense and the lies and the inside information. You don't have any of that. You can't prove any of that. Why don't you, instead of telling us a bunch of crap, break the poem out, break out a dictionary, okay, and show us how the poem is instructing you to do precisely what you're doing? I did it. I'm challenging everyone to do the same. Because if you can't do it, your solve is not even worth considering. Sorry, but that's just the facts. We're not going to pat each other on the back here. And remember, I'm telling you this from a point of view of somebody that failed. Sam and my partner, other partner, and myself failed. So did about 4 other people that were looking near the wheel. We failed. I believe Jack succeeded at the wheel. Jack is entitled to the chest. It was fair. Forrest Fenn didn't do anything wrong. He didn't have the chest pulled or any of that. Jack fairly beat us to it. I am not entitled to the chest, nor would I ever claim that. So I'm happy for Jack. But I'm annoyed because he won't give us the solve to confirm anything. And even if he did right now, who's alive? Where's Forrest? How can he, prove that Jack's not lying to us? Jack could tell us the chest was anywhere. How are we going to prove that? We can't. We would have to take his word for it. But he's not doing that. And I believe the reason why he's not doing that is because he knows the minute he comes out and says anything about this wheel, anything about this stuff, that it came from Sam Smith and myself. We are the only 2 people in the chase that discussed the medicine wheel. I know other people like Cal Lazars mentioned it, but Cal Lazars plagiarized all of that information directly from Sam. In one of the videos Cal made, he gives Sam credit. In the other video, he does not give him credit. Sam, I should say, and his original partner before me in 2013 are the ones that showed how to reveal try the wheel, which words to choose, so on and so forth. I teamed up with Sam, and I'm the one that figured out how the whole entire poem really works, because I wasn't willing to take Sam's word for it. I'm like, okay, try the wheel. How did you arrive at that? Why did you pick those words? And I don't want to hear because you partnered it. I want facts. Why did you pick it? So I was able to go through and read the poem in English without changing any words or removing any punctuation, any spacing. I read from left to right and top to bottom. And I proved myself of why it took me here. And that's why we're mad that we not only didn't get closure, we had a solver beat us to it. And when Sam and I both put that information out, we knew very well that we would run the risk of having somebody take that, because it's public information. We posted it in public. That doesn't remove our right from claiming we were the first people to publish it. But what it does do is it gives anybody the right to use it to locate and take the chest. And that's what Jack did. So Jack didn't do anything wrong. Like I said. But again, I believe because we didn't come out with any precision videos until the chase was over. And that's because the chase is over. There is no second chest. There's no chase 2.0. All of that stuff is a load of crap based all on lies and hearsay that nobody can back up. And I don't care who it is, Cynthia, none of those people can back anything up that they're talking about. All they're trying to do is attract attention of somebody that's doing a documentary. They want to make the money on the super chats, tax deductions from doing these so-called fundraisers. Well, if it's a fundraiser, how about you put 100% of your money in there, including the tax? Why would you get a tax benefit from doing an auction? Why don't you put 100%? Why don't you turn off super chats, donate all that money too? How about you also tell YouTube not to count any of the views those videos get? Because when people watch that video, when you're doing a fundraiser, you're making money. This is why I like the video that Eric did, because they're making money off it, even though it was a supposed quote unquote, kind act. It wasn't a kind act. Somebody took a map that was created by Forrest Fenn, blew it up at a printer, and then put a frame around it. Whatever. I spent years on the volunteer fire department. I spent years with my family helping handicapped kids because my brother was handicapped his whole life. We actually physically went boots on the ground and helped out. We went to parades, fundraisers, and everything. We didn't go there and bring a bunch of coins that we were going to sell and books and make money on the side. We did it out of the kindness of our heart and physically went there. And I commend Copper Dan for what he's doing by physically helping that lady in Minnesota, because he lives in Minnesota. That's a cool thing. That is helping somebody. But sitting there on a video channel while you're raking in money and blowing up, and that's nothing. I mean, that's nothing. Anybody can take a checkbook out, write some money, and hand it over and say, "Here you go, St. Jude's." That's fine. You donated money to St. Jude's. I have done that because, like I said, I believe in children and I believe in educating kids. All right. But what I don't do is do something for charity and then also simultaneously earn money back as a result of that. I don't earn anything on my channel. Nothing. I only have, at my highest point, I had slightly over 900 subscribers. You need over 1,000 subscribers. They changed it in 2018, just as I opened up my channel. Back when Calazars got his channel stuff, you didn't need 1,000. It was like 500 or something like that. So it was relatively easy. YouTube made it harder. But needless to say, I can't monetize any of my videos, whether I use copyrighted music or not. It just doesn't matter. I can't do it. I can't do super chats. I don't care. Because if I was going to do something to make money, I wouldn't do it based around Forrest Fenn. It's a limited market. At most, you had 350,000 searchers. So at most, you can expect 10,000 of them to be interested in it. Or, I'm sorry, at most, you could expect 10% of them. So 35,000 people at most. Bring it down to 1%, and you're more likely. So you got like 3,500 or 4,000 at most. Now that the chase is over, you could knock that all the way down to 100%, and you're lucky if you would have 30 people or 300 people interested. That's all you have. So all these channels you see out there now that claim they have 15,000 views and that's all a bunch of BS. There's no way to happen. You can go out there. There's companies you could pay, and you give them a link to the video, and they basically send a bunch of bots there to go watch your video, and it jacks it up, makes it more like more people are watching. That's how they do that. Okay, but YouTube is smart. Because YouTube, when somebody goes there and clicks like and they watch your video, YouTube puts a weight behind it. And that weight is based on how long they watch the video. So if somebody goes to a video and watches it for 1 minute and clicks the down, or they click up, either way, up or down, that holds a very low weight because they didn't watch the whole video, meaning that how could you vote yes or no on something when you haven't even read the whole thing or listened to the whole thing? So all of that factors in. So they're not stupid. They know what's going on. It doesn't push you up any higher than that. And it just doesn't make sense that you would have more viewers than there are that exist in the entire community at this point. Are you going to have a lot of views? Of course, especially if you're doing drama. Like I said, people like watching Jerry Springer. They don't want to watch educational videos like the stuff that perhaps I'll show you. They would rather watch a bunch of people come up with lies and speculation and a bunch of bogus conspiracies because people enjoy that stuff. And they know that. The people that are making money know that. Just like Eric said, Eric nailed it. He nailed it when he said that. You know, it's just so funny. The chase is over. Why don't these people just move on? Move on. You know, we're not going to get the ending. And your sob, especially if your sob was bogus and not anywhere near the site, you have no reason to speak, right? A lot of these people that showed up on YouTube now, where were they, 4 or 5 years ago? Show me where they helped in the chase. Where did they do anything to help anybody? And I'm talking about stuff that they didn't plagiarize. Show me where were they? They were nowhere. All of a sudden, boom, chase is over. All these people come out trying to look for documentaries. And all the people that were following Forrest Fenn around and in all of the interviews and stuff, they're all gone because there's nothing to make. That's where everybody should go. Be gone. I respect a lot of people. I respect Luli. I respect Sasha and Jason Dent, okay, because they moved on. They moved on. I respect Stephanie. I respect Mindy because they moved on. They moved on. They have other things in their lives to do. Forrest Fenn is over. The only reason why I'm even doing this video right now is because I want to know the damn solve. And Jack told me, and again, I believe that he's the finder. So he knows where the chest was. Jack told me, I asked him 2 questions. I said, 1, are you going to continue to chase, or, did you leave something behind at the location? His answer was right up, no. I'm not going to continue to chase. I'm not going to do any of that. And no, I left nothing behind. So I went back to him again and I said, okay, that's kind of depressing. I wish you would tell us where it was. But answer this question for me. Is there any way that I could still solve the poem and prove that I solved it with just the poem, even though the treasure chest is gone and you claim you left nothing behind? Jack's answer to me was yes. I still have the email. I showed it to you guys. His answer was yes. Then I asked a follow-up question. I said, oh my God. I said, are you sure? I want to clarify it. Can I find it? Right? He replied back to me again. He says, yes, you can. And he said, there is more than enough evidence to prove that your poem solution is correct. That is my goal here. So what I did is I threw away everything that I was working on in all the other parts of Wyoming, because I only searched in Wyoming. I threw all that away. And the only thing I did now is I'm focused on finding the ending point. And I'm trying to do everybody a favor, not myself, because I've already lost. I'm not going to get anything for this. There is no second place. There's no reward for not finding the chest. And whether or not my solve is right, it doesn't matter. Okay? It's after the fact. The chest is gone. Jack took it. Jack's moving on with life. Jack's never going to tell us anything. But he did say that it's still possible to prove the solve.